So when companies move to their first financing, there's a typical set of documents that are put together to close the financing. The first is called the share purchase agreement, or the subscription agreement sometimes, and that's the document under which the buyer of the shares acquires the shares. That document, it can be as short as a page or as long as 50 or 60 pages, depending on the size of the investment and the level of sophistication of the investor. Typically for seed investments, friends and family rounds, and the subscriptions by the initial founders, we're talking about a very short agreement, which basically confirms that the buyers of the shares are qualified to buy them under securities laws. And, depending on your stage of development, that can mean, people who are friends and family, or somehow related to people on the board, or it can be close friends and business associates, or accredited investors as defined under securities laws. Those are people who have a certain amount of cash, a certain amount of income, or a certain amount of assets. The other documents that you typically see in the financing transaction, the subscription agreement contains the representations and warranties typically about the company. How many shares are issued and outstanding? Does the company have any litigation? Are there any warts on the company, in other words? That could be quite a long list depending on the size of the investment and the stage of the investment, the level of sophistication of the investor. But we have sort of typical examples for various stages and sizes of transactions which we can work with you on. The other thing that's almost always delivered in connection with this type of investment for the company's own protection is the shareholders agreement. If you don't have one already, now's the time to get one, because arm's length parties who are not founders or employees of the company are starting to acquire shares. And it's a very good time, if they don't insist on it themselves, for the company to put in place the types of provisions in a shareholders agreement that we've talked about in other videos in this series.